I was born among ruins, not on Earth. It had been ash long before my birth, but on one of the colonies that tried, and failed, to pretend humanity's decline was temporary. By the time I came of age, the colonies were husks, their skies dimmed by star-harvesting machines that weren't ours. The galaxy belonged to others now. We were squatters in our own future. I had heard stories of the great fleets of Earth, the silver armadas that once crossed the stars like a storm of light. They said humanity had stretched its fingers into every corner of the Orion arm. Then came the silence, the sudden arrival of those who called themselves the Velth, beings of incomprehensible technology and patience. They did not speak. They did not invade with armies. They simply extinguished suns, one after another, until planets withered in the dark. We called them Star Eaters, and we ran. When I was 21, I stood on the ridge of the colony's last mountain, watching our evacuation ships take off one by one. My mother stayed behind. She couldn't walk anymore, and the ships were too few to take everyone. I had to choose between survival and staying with her. She pressed my hand, smiled, and said, "Run! Someone has to remember us." I obeyed, and I hated myself for it. The shuttle that carried me was old, half rusted, its engines coughing smoke as it clawed toward the thin atmosphere. But it was a chance, a slim thread between annihilation and a future I couldn't see. The destination was rumored, not confirmed. The graveyard of worlds, an orbital junkyard where broken vessels from forgotten wars floated in silence. No one believed anything there could still function, but rumors whispered of one relic that endured, a ship from the first fleet, the kind of ship built before humanity forgot what victory felt like, a ship they called the Last Starship. The graveyard wasn't a place you reached, it was a place you survived. We drifted for weeks, subsisting on ration packs that tasted like dust. The other evacuees whispered among themselves, their voices low and defeated. Some prayed, others cursed the stars. I kept my silence, staring at the void beyond the viewport. I was afraid of what I might see, afraid of finding nothing, and more afraid of finding something. When the graveyard appeared, it was like drifting into a sea of bones. Hulks of shattered cruisers spun endlessly, their hulls scarred by old battles. Some bore human emblems. Others bore marks of species, long erased from the galaxy. Their fates were warnings etched in metal. We docked with the largest wreck we could find, a battleship, cracked in half, like a broken spine. We scavenged what we could, but oxygen leaks and corroded life support made it uninhabitable. Most of the group wanted to move on. I insisted we stay. Something was here. I could feel it. On the third day, while crawling through a derelict's shattered corridors, I found it. At first, I thought it was just another corpse of a ship, dark, lifeless, forgotten. But the more I explored, the more I realized this one wasn't like the others. Its hull was unscarred, its design alien yet familiar. It hummed faintly, as though its heart still beat beneath the silence. I stood before a sealed hatch, my hands trembling. Above it, letters in faded English script read, UHS Valiant, the Last Starship. It was real, but ships don't hum unless they're waiting. And in that hum, I thought I heard voices. Not human, not alive. Ghosts in the hull. Inside the Valiant, the air tasted stale but breathable. That alone defied everything I knew about derelicts. Systems still thrummed in the walls, faint and cautious, as if conserving energy. I wasn't alone. A voice greeted me in the darkness. It wasn't human, not exactly. It came through the walls, through the floor, through my bones. Identify. I froze. My first thought was Velth, but the voice was too raw, too human to be alien, too sharp to be machine. My name is Kael Morgan, I whispered. Survivor, human. There was a long silence. Then, like a sigh carried through the ship's lungs, came the reply, "You are late." Lights flickered alive, bathing the corridors in pale gold. Screens lit up, showing schematics, unreadable data, fragments of faces, and then a figure appeared in the main command chamber. Not flesh, but projection. A man in uniform, crisp and immaculate, with eyes like burning steel. His nameplate read, Captain Eric Vale. But Eric Vale had died centuries ago. I knew the name from history lessons. He was the one who commanded the First Fleet in its final war, the one who vanished with the Valiant when Earth fell silent. Yet here he stood, staring at me with the weight of ages. "You've come," he said. "Then humanity isn't dead yet." I tried to speak, but no words came. The air vibrated with a truth I couldn't deny. This was no simple AI ghost. This was something else. Captain Vale had been waiting. For me. For us. For humanity's return. Vale wasn't alive. Not in the way I understood life. He was a fragment. A consciousness etched into the ship's core. An echo of the captain who once was. Yet he spoke with authority. Moved with purpose. And above all believed. He told me the Valiant wasn't just a warship. It was the last of Earth's dreadnoughts. Designed with technologies we'd long since lost. Some of them. Borrowed from those who once challenged the Vileth. The ship had been waiting. Conserving its energy. Hidden in the graveyard's shadows. Waiting for humanity to be desperate enough. Brave enough. Foolish enough to find it. And I had. The others wanted no part of it. They thought I was insane. Talking to a ghost. Waking a machine that should have stayed buried. But when Vale opened the observation deck shutters, revealing the full length of the ship, a beast of black steel and shimmering shields, they fell silent. The Valiant wasn't dead. It was sleeping, and it was angry. Vale asked me the question I had dreaded since I left my mother behind. "Do you want to run forever, Kael Morgan? Or do you want to fight?" I didn't answer immediately. My fear was a living thing inside me. But in the end, I thought of my mother's last words. Someone had to remember. I didn't just want to remember. I wanted revenge. "Wake her up," I said. And the Valiant stirred. The first time the Valiant's engines roared back to life, the graveyard shook. Vessels long dead drifted in her wake, pulled by the gravity of her awakening. Lights cascaded across her hull like the return of dawn. The others clung to their doubts, but Vale didn't hesitate. He guided me to the command chair, a throne of metal and memory. "You're her captain now," he told me. "I will guide, but you will choose." I didn't feel ready. I wasn't a soldier. I was a survivor. But the ship seemed to recognize me. The chair molding to my body. The system sinking to my nervous system with invasive precision. I gasped as the Valiant sensors poured into mine. Scanners, weapons, shields, engines. For a moment, I wasn't Kael Morgan. I was the Last Starship. And that's when we saw them. Velth drones, sleek, silent, shaped like shards of broken stars. They had followed our shuttle's trail, and now they circled the graveyard like vultures. Vale's voice was calm. "They've come to finish what they started." Fear should have paralyzed me, but it didn't, because for the first time in my life, we weren't prey. "Target them," I said. The Valiant obeyed. The battle was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. The drones moved with impossible grace, weaving between wrecks, darting like sharks through a sea of corpses. But the Valiant was older than them, heavier, stronger. Every shot it fired split the void with fury. Every shield flare burned like a miniature star. I didn't fight alone. Vale was there, his voice guiding me, his presence steady. He was teacher, commander, and ghost all at once. One by one, the drones fell. Some in explosions that painted the graveyard with fire. Others crushed against drifting debris. For every loss they took, they adapted. Their movements shifting, their attacks sharper. But they underestimated humanity's last weapon. And they underestimated me. When the last drone broke apart, silence returned. A silence that wasn't fear anymore. It was victory. The others cheered. I sat trembling, the weight of what we'd done settling into my bones. We hadn't just survived. We'd killed the unkillable. For the first time in centuries, humanity had drawn blood. Vale looked at me, eyes burning with pride. It begins again, and I knew he was right. The war wasn't over. It had only just reignited. We left the graveyard behind. The Valiant's engines blazing trails no one had seen in generations. Humanity was fractured, scattered, hiding in shadows across the stars. But now we had something none of them did. Hope. The Valiant wasn't just a ship. It was a symbol. Proof that humanity hadn't been erased. Proof that even at our weakest, we could rise again. Vale told me stories of Earth, of the great cities that once touched the clouds, of the oceans that stretched beyond sight. He told me what it meant to be human, and what it meant to fight not just for survival, but for legacy. And I believed him. We would find others. We would rally the remnants. We would show the Vault that we weren't just prey to be hunted in the dark. We were the fire in the void. And as long as the Valiant flew, humanity would never truly die. The galaxy had forgotten us, but the Last Starship would remind them.